Welcome back to the Interconnectedness of Things. I'm your host, Emily Nava. And today is the first episode of a 5-part series that we're starting where we explore how government work actually moves, especially in a moment when agencies are being asked to do a lot more with less resources. So I wanted to start off our discussion today about work intake with how can federal agencies better leverage AI tools to improve intake internally between agencies and with citizen requests? I'm joined here with my co-host, Andrew Hudson, and would love to hear his thoughts on that question.
Oh, man, it's a big question. So first, like when you hear AI tools, what comes to mind?
I think of ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So like
Summarization.
summarizing documents, like what are some other ways that maybe you use AI tools? Like you use them for first drafts or anything like that?
Yeah, content outlines,
Mm-hmm.
just some ideation help. Um, so yeah, it's really just me like asking a bot a question.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I use it similarly, and I'll tell you, it's an enormous investment to go past where you just articulated,
Hmm.
like to actually getting work done. um, this concept of an agent and what the heck even an agent is within the confines of AI, it is a little bit tough to describe because you can target almost any type of job and you're going to get some level of quality depending on the model, depending on how well you articulate what's needed, the examples and context you give. It's not a simple thing. It's not like a flip the switch, AI is now on and everything's okay. So if it's not simple, why would the federal government invest the time to get some benefit back? Well, from what I've seen in practice, some agencies have started to figure this out and they're going to get varying results uh, with how they want to use it. Like it can be all the way from can AI predict different scenarios on the fly on the battlefield to better assess a situation, to can I optimize crop incentives for farmers, producers. And then there's just the rudimentary stuff. So that kind of takes me to the second part of your question, uh, intake internally, triggering some type of work, something between agencies. Uh, we hear a lot in with our customers and our federal government work, how often the DOJ interfaces with other agencies, and how can that be easier? Might be surprised to know that AI tools have nothing to do with it. The improvements that can be made really center on adoption of technologies that have been around for a while and proven, and making sure that they are supported, maintained, and organized in a central way. And that takes a lot of vision and coordination that may be hard with changing initiatives and paradigms and administrations. So I don't know. What do you think? You have there's some list of things here like digital forms and portals and emails, document uploads. Um, do you see AI helping with any of that?
Well, I'm kind of under the impression that people are thinking AI is an easy button, that I
Mm.
don't have the staff I had before. I'm still getting the same amount of work coming in, and so AI just we need to put it in there and organize everything. Um, but
It's
that's not
magical.
right.
Yeah.
And that's just not the reality of how AI works. you only get what you put into it. And so um, at these different agencies, there's lots of different ways that people can put work into the system or start work, like forms or emails or calls or mail, paper mail still. So AI can't take all of those things and organize them for you.
You can take a
Uh,
stab,
It can, yeah, it can definitely try.
and
But
maybe
I
that's
think,
enough to get somebody started. But
right.
I don't think it's an answer. Like I have, and this could be my own bias, but like I have a tough time letting something just go
Hmm.
and feeling assured that it will get done, no matter how much detail I provide, no matter how well organized something is to begin with. Uh, However, if you're starting with the most disorganized thing, I think AI can make a dent in that. But that depends on how you ask it to. If
Yeah.
you got this grand vision and you can't think of step by steps on how you would tackle the problem and break it up into chunks, if you're just here's the whole problem and here's the outcome I want, do it. I've never seen that work at 100%,
Right. You
whether I'm
need some
talking
kind
to a
of
human or an AI.
right. So they need to be clear about their standards and
Yeah.
create a standardized approach to intake.
Structure really helps. And what I mean by structure, when let's take a file system. So a lot of stuff just, or your email inbox, stuff just comes in. It has some metadata, like who sent it, uh, has a subject line, has a body, has a timestamp. If you look at an email, it's got a bunch of other behind the scenes metadata, but most of that isn't relevant to the person looking at
Right.
it. And it's just a mess. And we've even seen attempts by Microsoft and Google, perhaps even others, those are the two I've seen, trying to just give basic organization to your files. We've seen them promotion, important, but it gets it wrong, and then you have to go in and you have to say, no, this is shouldn't have been hidden. I want this in the main inbox.
Yeah, things end up in spam all the time. That's not spam.
Right. And not enough ends up in spam that should.
Exactly.
uh, so from a starting point framework, it's good. Or if you're 95% done and need some tweaks, it can kind of take the baton from there. And what I've seen is really a knowledge graph needs to be made for the target to expedite how the agent traverses the system. Because the agent can waste a lot of context just trying to figure out what the heck is going on. And then you have
So
to start over.
so that would mean like creating a knowledge graph of what you of all of the important information you need. Is that what you
Yeah.
mean?
And I've only used this at a small scale.
Hmm.
So uh, when we make tools here, we can have a code graph, a knowledge graph get created, which cuts down the time the AI tool needs to get its context for what you're asking by like 80%. So it means it has more space to actually do something that you're asking it to do. All that to be said, how do we tie this back to improving the intake between agencies and citizen requests? You need to start with a consistent structured methodology. The fewer ways something can be defined, which creates predictability, which then improves the AI tools. Because you have to remember, AI tools don't think, they operate based off of probabilities. Every time you start a conversation, it's putting that through multiple transformers. That's the T in ChatGPT, to
Okay.
figure out what is probably the next best word cluster or character cluster to come next. Well, that needs predictability, which means you're making your own model, or you're making something to support the model you're trying to use. That's hard, and I don't think people get that.
Hmm.
So I would start back to the basics. Are you organized? Yes or no? Do you have uh, a digital form or an email for taking a request? Could you make a digital form? Do you have a portal that everybody goes to, or is it however they can get to somebody is acceptable? When you start narrowing the channels that these requests can come in and standardizing with a level of flexibility, don't get me wrong, on how you take that information in, the greater you create predictability, which increases the likelihood you can get AI tools to do something productive. I don't know. What
So
do you
would
think
this
about all that?
mean so would this mean cutting down on the ways you can intake information?
It does, but sometimes when you say it like that, it makes me think being rigid. And one of
Hmm.
my favorite sayings that I always love is you have to assume uniqueness, but you need a standard way to assume uniqueness.
That seems hard.
uh, 1924, Henry Ford, in creating one of the first production lines, loved to say, "You can have any color you want as long as it's black."
Exactly.
And that's where you start. Okay, let me narrow this down to just exactly what's needed. Okay, but a color is a variable. So now I can build that variable in. Now you can select from a list of available colors. Um, Maybe you have a a special need for something that you can't predict, but you can standardize how you collect that special need. Has to be on a form, has to be in its own free text field, has to have other context along with it. And once you start standardizing, then you can get to standardized customization, which is still predictable. But if everything is a snowflake, that's hard for anyone or anything to help know what to do next, unless
Right.
you're going to shovel the snowflakes, which then it doesn't matter that it's a snowflake.
So then it would almost seem like if you're trying to standardize snowflakes, you're spending just as much time reviewing the intake to make sure it's all standardized.
Yeah, it takes considerable forethought and vision for any process to be adopted. And always, always, always remember what Steve Jobs said. You can only please some of the people some of the time. And if you don't have a steadfast vision for where this needs to be and accept that there will be pushback,
Hmm.
where I've seen these initiatives fail is verbally, we've identified setbacks can happen, but like in our heart, we fold. So that when we get pushback from someone, we overemphasize that pushback. We over, oh, what are my words I'm trying to think of? Like, give it too much importance? I don't know. I thought I was trying to be more articulate.
I mean, I think that's says it perfectly.
Okay. Thank you. Uh, and as a result, people will stop, change, roll back, do something different because one person said something. And
Hmm.
that can be all it takes. And so to do something like this, to change your feedback, it's the people involved that really are the most important, because the people have to be willing to adopt it. They have to understand why it's important on what you're doing and the added benefits you get. And you have to have leadership ready and willing to back it up and not back down.
Yep. And I think that's an important thing too. It is kind of a top down thing. If your leaders aren't following the standards, then it would be hard for the rest of the team too.
Mm-hmm.
I had a question here. And I lost it.
Oh, no. I'm sure it was brilliant.
It was. It had something to do with, I guess, getting started with something, or getting started with working through the chaos of intake, if that is what an agency is facing. And so it sounds like starting at the end, creating your ideal end state of the data would be a good place to start.
Yeah, it is. Seven Habits of Highly Effective People, written by Stephen Covey, would say on one of those seven things, begin with the end in mind.
Mm-hmm.
And it is good to articulate that summit, that mountaintop that you're hiking up to, but be flexible on the path. And I think that's where a lot of these initiatives fail, and not just in federal agencies, everywhere, is that folks are not quite sure how to adapt to a different path or even be able to articulate the path that they would need to follow so everyone involved can understand to get to the same summit together, not just me by myself.
Right.
Uh, and so, if, like, as if you're asking for like advice, um, don't just begin with the end in mind. Think about where you can start as well. What's a win that I can get up front that helps me build upon? And then start building on that. Sometimes it's easy to go from where you want to be and reverse engineer it. Sometimes it's okay to say, here's where I want to go. And I know I got to start here and let me build on top as I go. I can't say which is best for you, but if you're starting to feel struggles with one method, try the other.
Yeah. Well, and
Uh,
I guess too, I'm hearkening back on AI just being seemingly this all encompassing solution for any gaps in resources. And people just like to say, well, we need AI because we don't have the people for it.
yeah, that is a foolish, and I apologize for being harsh, but like that is foolish to think just that I get AI, it does something, and everything's better. That's like
Yeah.
the worst thing. It's almost like, okay, in a world, I want AI to handle 80% of my tasks because my workload just grew 5x.
Yep.
So you
So
have to
what are
start
the
with,
tasks? How do you do the task? What do you need
that's
for
right,
the tasks?
exactly right. How would you get another person to handle it? If you can't answer that, there's no way you could get AI to do it.
Right. And
And
like
there's,
we talked about at the very beginning, AI means a lot of different things to a lot of different people.
mm-hmm. So when I'm talking about it, I'm mostly talking about the generative AI for creating summaries and helping with the outlines like you had articulated before. I'm not talking about workflow automation and adaptability, which is another item that an LLM could provide.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not talking about machine learning and things like predictive analytics that have been around for 20 plus years. However, some people might conflate all those different things into one.
Yep.
Uh, and by the way, they all have the same root. You need to be structured and predictable with your structure. There are some things out there that don't force that. So I'm not saying it can't be done without structure. I'm simply saying I want, if you're like me and you want more predictability, reliability from your outputs of the system, you need to have greater organization, uh, standards, and habits.
So the change starts with you and your processes. The
Man,
change does not
yeah,
start with AI.
yeah. Like there's so much in your control that you can start with for sure.
Yeah.
Maybe that's a miss. That's why I don't worry about AI replacing people, because it's, for most people it's incredibly difficult to think in those ways.
Right.
Uh,
Um, so quick question before we wrap up this first episode in our 5-part series. So if an agency leader has their intake process and they're feeling like it's disjointed, they think maybe AI might be something that they can leverage, what is something that they should audit or they should figure out, write down, structure tomorrow
mhm.
morning if they wanted to go down this road?
So if it were me and I was faced with that, I would begin a conversation with an LLM. And I would say,
So
here's,
open Claude or open ChatGPT.
yep,
Start a chat.
or whatever I had access to, whether I would avoid Copilot like the plague. Um, but I would ChatGPT, OpenAI directly. Um, Claude has been very predictable. Even Gemini has been helpful to get a conversation started, an outline articulated. So I would first write down everything I knew about the process. Then I would write down every pain point that the process creates. And I would take that and provide it to the AI model and say, here's my process. Here's what isn't working. Give
Mhm.
me 2 to 3 approaches I can take using these constraints, because you're going to have constraints. It has to be this model, it has to be this tech, it has to be this level of access, whatever it is. So you have to put in the constraints in there to the extent that you can make decisions and leverage other tools, and then ask it for those 2 or 3 approaches and see what it comes back with. And that's a great place to get you started because it's going to give you direction. Now, if you go to Copilot, it's just going to tell you how to, I don't know, upload a PDF yourself.
How to open a PDF.
Yeah. And send
Yeah.
you to a link to go open it, not even talk to you about how to do it in the chat itself. So I view Copilot as just a good help desk.
Yeah. So, and that too can just kind of give somebody an idea of how AI could even help or where to AI makes sense in the process.
Yeah.
Because we know it can't be fully automated. And then it could also give somebody trying to do this more context to take to an outsourced partner that might specialize in workflow automation, for instance.
You mean like us? Yeah. So
Like us,
what?
people systems, exactly.
Yeah. 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 Let's not be too biased here, but I mean, we go and create workflows, and we are adding in agentic steps so that people can deliberately and in a controlled manner add an AI agent to a specific step and decide which route to take next. That's incredibly powerful and also incredibly targeted.
Hmm.
And that's what you really need is something, I want you to do this and only this. And here's what you're going to get as an input. And here's what I expect one of these 3 outputs. And be super specific. and it'll do it if you're practiced at making it do that. So it can be fully automated. Sorry to contradict your earlier statement, but it not easily.
Well,
And
with a standard, predictable, linear process.
even a multi directional workflow that can go in different states and directions, those are still finite and those are still standard. If you do something like put in a workflow step and say, do what you think is best, which I've seen people do, sometimes they get just a fine output with that. And other times it's like, what the heck? Like, is this model taking LSD? What's going on? These hallucinations are wild. So yeah, and then it's your level of comfort with letting the reins go.
Mm-hmm.
I've said this a lot when we're using AI internally, which we do. It's an enhancement, not a replacement.
Yep. Exactly.
Just like you wouldn't give credit to someone making a spreadsheet to Excel, right?
Right.
If an LLM creates or populates the Excel file or makes changes, to me, that's just enhancing a thing that you wanted done anyway. You just didn't want to spend the time that it would have taken to do it manually. And I think more and more folks can get on board with that mentality with using these tools,
Mm-hmm.
and also a little perspective based on our scar tissue of like, when should you apply it and what are the best cases for it.
Right. And it's not staff replacement. It's just an efficiency tool.
Mm-hmm. Even AI first companies are investing heavily in defining agents, but as an enhancement to an existing role.
Mm-hmm.
And the person who's conducting that role is still responsible for it and responsible for improving the agentic performance.
Right. So what I've learned here is that if you want the rest of your process to go smoothly and get to that dream in state that you have in mind, you have to start at intake and make sure that that is standard before anything else.
It will sure help.
Well, great. Well, awesome. Well, I hope that if you're listening and you've got a crazy intake process that's just all over the place, I hope that you found a tidbit of information here that might help you on your journey as you see if AI is the solution or the tool that you might need next. So next time we're going to talk about once information is entered the system, now what? And how do we keep this standardization going? So,
I might change my mind by the time we do the next episode. So buckle up and stay tuned, because you know
yeah,
what
it
I'm
might
gonna
not even
say.
be about that anymore. So
Yeah.
who knows? But thank you again for tuning in to another episode of the Interconnectedness of Things. If you found this conversation insightful or entertaining, please share with your network, and we'll see you on the next one.